How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to my channel, Episodes Reviews. Today I want to get into Disney's The Bad Batch, one of the newest phenomena going on in media. I know I've been excited waiting for it, all the trailers, the views, the hype behind it. I was a big fan of Disney's Clone Wars when that came out, so I was really looking forward to this as well. So before we get into the first two episodes of The Bad Batch, I kind of just want to give a quick backstory on myself and Star Wars. So I've been watching Star Wars for about 20 plus years now, and it goes back to probably The Phantom Menace when that came out in theaters, as well as watching some of the original trilogy VHS tapes that my dad had when I was growing up. I was really lucky to get exposed by those early on. He was a pretty big Star Wars fan, and it was something me and my brother. It's something me and my brothers just fell in love with right off the bat. Of course, who wouldn't want magic powers to move things and a lightsaber, of course? So it was just the coolest thing growing up. Of course, I watched the rest of the prequel trilogy. Might be my favorite set of movies. I did grow up with them, so could be it. But after that, let's get into The Bad Batch, alright? We're going to start with the first episode of The Bad Batch. And kind of where that starts off, I thought was really interesting, starting the whole series off around the end of the Revenge of the Sith episode 3, start of Order 66, which is, I know for myself, a time period I really want covered and seen in every perspective possible, because we see what happens in Revenge of the Sith, and it's so catastrophic, so monumental. You see Anakin in his rampage through the Jedi Temple. You see Yoda feeling it out through the Force. And there's a few other Jedi that we get to see, and of course, in other games like the early Battlefront 2 game, we see a few moments. But this was really cool to see, especially from the side of clone troopers who had never been activated by Order 66. So when this whole thing started, I immediately braced for pain because I knew it was going to be a sad story off the bat. There's no way you can start Order 66 and you're going to be okay with it after, right? So I didn't get this at first when it first started. I admit I didn't watch Star Wars Rebels. It's on my list of things to watch. My younger brother tells me it's amazing and I have to watch it. Of course, I've seen some of those clips, great moments of Admiral Thrawn, the Vader versus Obi-Wan. I'm sorry, the Darth Maul versus Obi-Wan, and the Vader versus Ahsoka. So when I found out, well, I guess when they introduced young Kanan in the show, I thought that was pretty cool, especially because some of us know his background, his history and distrust of the clones. So to see that kind of come to fruition, see what actually happened to his master and to him, I thought was something that Dave Filoni and Disney, when they brought that full circle, that was going to be a very troubled time. And especially towards the end of the Clone Wars, we don't see too much of what really went on. So this was definitely a treat. So I've been wondering personally, what happened to the Bad Batch after Order 66 happened? We see them in the beginning of Clone Wars, season 7, I believe, the last season, and they took the whole show by storm. They were a treat to watch, especially because they don't do things traditionally, but all the clones and everyone with the 501st or anyone with the main group's army, they definitely went with it because those guys did their job. They showed up. Whether you liked how they did it or not, they got results. So I was always curious as to whether did they join the rest of the clone army and integrate into the Empire, or did they disobey orders or whatever happened to them? But I guess now we know they didn't obey Order 66, which I thought was interesting, that a fault in their I guess programming because of their mutations. I guess it makes sense. I'm no scientist, but I thought that was definitely interesting. that it had a resistance towards the microchips embedded in them. So when the order happens, we see Palpatine show up on as a hologram. So immediately when we see the clone commander have Palpatine pop up on his as a hologram, and he gives the order to exterminate the Jedi, the Master senses something is wrong, and of course the rest of the Bad Batch um, wonder why are they shooting at this Jedi Master. Kanan, of course, doesn't understand what's going on because just a few minutes before that, they were telling that same clone commander was telling off the Bad Batch, "My commander runs this place." So everyone's immediately confused, and I don't blame Kanan for just running off without saying anything. Honestly, just being afraid. And then, of course, I'm sure I'm not the only one that noticed, but as soon as, he starts running, Crosshair's got this weird look that he's not maybe on the same page as everyone else. He's like, "You heard the order. A good soldier follows orders." So that right there was immediately a red flag for myself. And of course, I thought he was extra cold for aiming and shooting down Kanan while he was in the trees, and almost killed him at the end. But thank God someone like Hunter's around who can kind of hold his own and keep, this situation getting worse. So now we know the story of Kanan. I am curious to know a little bit more where he gets to be in terms of a mentor to Ezra and Rebels. I'm sure I probably have to watch to find out, and hopefully I can review that as well if the time comes around for it. And just to go back on the issue with Crosshair and Hunter, he was really digging at him in the beginning, calling him out in front of the others, questioning him and his motives. So of course, at that point, it's just red flags everywhere. Crosshair is not on the same page. Crosshair is definitely fallen some from Order 66. Maybe not to the same degree, but he's definitely not the same Crosshair that we've known him to be. Looking forward to watching Hunter in this series, because after watching his whole scene with Crosshair and watching Kanan, he shows a lot of confusion, maybe a little bit of, I don't want to say regret, but he's definitely not feeling good about the whole situation. So seeing how he moves forward from this is definitely going to be interesting to watch. So from there we go to the planet Camino, and I feel like that's always a special time in Star Wars whenever we go ahead and see Camino, because there's always something interesting that happens every time it comes around. Start in the beginning, when Obi-Wan first went, that's when we discovered the Clone Army. After that, in Clone Wars, we have that few series where we go and see those rookies that we follow in Anakin's 501st, Fives, Echo, Rex, early on. And every time we go there, it's always a treat. Like early on, when in episode 2, we see Obi-Wan go to Kamino for the first time and discover that the clone army has been being made in secret in service of the Jedi. The next time, at least I can think of, is early on in Clone Wars, when we go and see some of those rookie members of the 501st that we follow, Echo and Fives, and those guys. And they link up with number 99. Who can forget about number 99? Oh man, who can forget about 99? And then there's, at the same time, I think we have a siege on Kamino by Asajj Ventress and the Clone Army, and that was a spectacular event to watch. I kind of miss seeing her around in the series, but I know it's never going to happen again. So there were a couple really nice scenes I saw in this whole first part when they're in Camino. The mess hall incident was hilarious. The food fight, Omega starting it, Wrecker being the instigator, and I guess all these other clones, or the regs as they like to call them, really have it out for them, whether they're activated by Order 66 or not. I guess everyone just hates the Bad Batch. There's another moment that I really liked, and shout out to my brother for this. He pointed out to me the Jedi that was wheeled in front of the Bad Batch when they first landed, that was possibly Master Shaak Ti of the Jedi Council. And we know that, and I had completely forgotten that the last time we saw her, I believe she was on Kamino sending off uh, our allies. So it really makes sense that that was her. They didn't confirm it. I don't know if they ever will, but it would make a lot of sense, especially because we never had a canon ending to Shaak Ti. I played the Force Unleashed games on the Xbox when they came out, and I know that that was a side story ending to her. The next best part is when we see the man himself, well, maybe not Grand Admiral, but Admiral Tarkin, make his way onto Kamino. And my first thoughts of that were, these clones are about to get bullied, because I remember reading some of the comics, and Tarkin, that man does not play around. He's not afraid to take his shirt off and start beating up his own troops. So I was really thinking, I don't know if something like that was going to happen, but I knew he was definitely going to mess with some of the clones. He was going to put our boys to a challenge, and this could be the start of the beginning of the end of the clones, I believe, because Tarkin doesn't really seem to trust or believe in them. He does believe in results, but I think he really wants to move away from the clones and more into regular people, as we see the Empire does later on. That whole battle scene that he puts them through, I thought that was really cool. Everyone got a chance to show off their talents. Everyone had a moment, especially Crosshair with that shot. How are you going to shoot a knife into the battle droid? I've never seen anything like that. Jedi, clone, Sith, anything. So that was awesome. And Tarkin himself even cracked a smile at how amazing they were. So, he recognizes real. And then from there, he gives them the mission, of course, to go to dispatch some rebel scum. And then that's when we go ahead and first meet Saw Gerrera. I thought that was kind of cool to see Saw Gerrera in here personally. A lot of cameos in this first episode. I don't know if he's ever going to make his way back into the series. It'd probably be cool, but I don't know what sort of role he would play outside of maybe being someone who can bring the Bad Batch in to help start the rebellion. Maybe it's just you hear about him and some of his early exploits for starting the rebellion, but I really think it might have just been sort of a light for the Bad Batch to really show them what's going on in the system, all the atrocities that the Empire is starting to commit under this new regime. So, of course, after the incident with Saw Gerrera, he and his people have managed to escape. And the Bad Batch find out they've been being spied on this whole time by Tarkin through drones. So, because of this, Crosshair, he's saying we're in trouble. We should be following orders. And but of course, Hunter and the rest, they don't see it that way. They really want to know what's going on. So from there, we go back to Kamino, possibly to try to find some answers. So we see that as soon as they get back, Tarkin immediately has them ambushed. He brings them prisoner, and he takes Crosshair with him. Of course, he sees Crosshair is the only one who seems to have some sort of loyalty to the Empire. He's not as faulty in terms of his orders and the reprogramming that Order 66 sort of did on the clones. So it's natural, I guess, that they would single him out and bring him in. I personally like the moment to text quick thinking when they're in the cell. These cells are not meant to hold prisoners. They were made before the war. So naturally, they're not built to hold someone like them, especially Wrecker. So that whole sequence of him bashing in the side door or Omega sneaking through, I thought that was interesting. They break out. Of course, everyone else is going to catch on because you can't break out in the middle of a clone army facility and not be kept a secret. So I was really wondering how they were going to get off the planet, especially with Crosshair potentially coming back, which he ended up doing. I thought their little standoff was a really nice challenge. You know, one of your own, who's usually the one watching your back as your long distance sharpshooter, is now pointing it at you. So what do you do in this situation? Of course, he had them pinned down. Hunter was definitely in a bind. He wasn't too sure what to do, but Crosshair didn't count for Omega, and this is where I kind of want to get into speculating on Omega, because she made that pinned, she made that shot, and that shot was perfect almost. The only thing she probably could have done was maybe hit Crosshair himself, but she shot his rifle, and she managed to get everyone else out there to safety and kept the fire on them. So I really want to know, does Omega really have some of these powers that the other Bad Batch have? I've been hearing this theory circulating around the community, um, and I really want to know if that's the case. She did manage to break the vents. I don't know if it was a strength thing or a weight thing. Some people say that might have been, her ability that she's channeling from Wrecker. The shot could be Crosshair. She does seem to have a good mind, kind of like Tech, and she does have really good instincts, kind of like Hunter as well. So if that's the case, I think that'd be really cool. I'd like them to utilize it a little more, flesh that out. But if not, I'm curious to know what makes Omega so special. So speaking of Omega, once we leave the planet, I really like this moment that she has where she's looking out into space for the very first time in her life, and the crew look at her. What is she staring at? What's wrong with her? But then it hits me. She's never left Camino. She has never left a very clean, futuristic like facility surrounded by 10-foot aliens and a bunch of men. And it's surrounded by water. So this is probably a huge culture shock for her, especially once we get into episode 2. So I thought that was a really great moment. I'm sure there's going to be a lot more of these. I know there is one we do have in episode 2, but I'm living vicariously through Omega right now, and it's just really fun to watch this kid go and live life. Okay, so let's get into episode 2. So this part, it's going to be a lot shorter than the first part. Of course, with a 70-minute episode for the first one, there's a lot more to cover. This one, a lot shorter, not as much going on, but there are a few points that I really liked across this episode as well. Um, so going back to those moments for Omega, when she landed on the ground, I knew immediately this was going to be a huge shock for her. Trees, grass, actual like breathable air, maybe. Especially now she's used to when it comes to maybe the stale air on Camino, I could assume. But watching her get down there and just grab some dirt was kind of really wholesome. Um, so I'm looking forward to a couple more of these moments. Like I said, I'm very living vicariously through her. So, of course, they bring up another moment that a lot of us were probably wondering about what happened to this character post Order 66. And of course, when I say that, I'm talking about Cut, the clone who had abandoned, not abandoned, but who left the clone army just in time, honestly. Um, who left the clone army to go ahead and live on this remote planet in the Outer Rim, met a woman, adopted some kids, and he's just living the life. So I was pretty curious to see what happened with this guy, and I was really happy to see that he's still around. His kids are fine. His wife's fine. It looks like they stepped up security a little bit since Rex showed up for good reasons. And when it comes to some of these other moments, for the society post 66. I'm telling you, Disney and Filoni, they delivered here, especially when it came to some of these policies that government entity like the Empire puts into place, especially to maintain the rule and keep a tight-knit control on the Empire. Because, as we know, Palpatine's very thorough. If there's anything, this man is thorough. So he wants to know who's out there, who's everyone, keep them on a leash, and basically rule over them like the man he is. So we're on this planet in the Outer Rim, and I didn't think that Empire would have such a strong presence here, especially right away. It doesn't seem like Order 66, or I guess the Empire, has existed for that long, but they already have stormtroopers around, they already have Imperial officers around. So it's kind of cool to see this whole transition period, especially when they introduced these ID chain codes for citizens. I guess, as you know, like Americans, we have our social security numbers. That's how the government can identify us specifically. So it makes sense that they would have something like this in place. And it really looks like the Empire is really trying to get their grasp on these outer rim planets to get them into the fold. Because of course, with the de-escalation of something like the Republic, I'm sure there's definitely a bit of a power vacuum there in the galaxy. Not only is the Republic gone, but the Separatists have just recently gone as well. So I wouldn't be surprised if we have groups like the Hutts who are moving as well to expand their space territory. Of course, we know that the Hutts still have a stronghold in the original trilogy, so I wouldn't be surprised if they're making the same moves right now. So I'm very glad Cut and his family were able to make it out. Um, Although I really thought at the end there that clone trooper had him. He said, "Oh, you look like..." I'm sitting on the edge of my seat, and thank God the commotion's going on that brought them all away from Cut and his family. Um, they have to give them a happy ending, send them off on their way, and I feel like that's probably the last time we'll ever see of Cut. So at least we know he made it off the planet safe. Will he ever have another ending? Will we ever see him again? I'm not too sure. I don't know if he has ever mentioned or have any moments in Rebels that pop up. But if anyone does or knows, please let me know and comment down below. I'd love to hear about it. I never believed Omega was going to leave the group. Of course, you have to build some tension there. You have to give Hunter a reason to really want to hold on to Omega and protect her. And she also really needs a reason to hang on with them, because these are their soldiers. They don't know anything about taking care of a kid. And Omega doesn't know anything outside of the Camino facility. So for everyone, it's a difficult situation. So the crew ends up meeting back up at the end and taking off on the next adventure, leaving the planet. Empire's not in tow, but I'm sure that they're definitely going to be hearing about some of these exploits here on the planet. Will they send someone after the group? I'm sure we'll probably find out in the next episode. I don't have too much to speculate on right now, so I'm going to save any predictions for a later date. But that's going to bring this video to an end, folks. Thanks for watching. I really appreciate it. Feel free to comment, like, and subscribe, or dislike as well if you really want to.